Welcome to What's Happening in Zimbabwe. This is the podcast where we update you on exactly what's happening in Zimbabwe. It's in the name, so let's go. Breaking news. Dollarization is the worst thing to do. This is according to the finance minister, the deputy finance minister of Zimbabwe. So the Zimbabwean government has remained adamant that its decision not to revert to the United States dollar as the dominant currency, despite it being the market preference over the depreciating Zimbabwe gold, more commonly known as the ZiG. The ZiG was introduced by the government this year and has been losing value against the US dollar, leading to price instability and inflation like you've never seen before. Some crazy stuff.
The de-dollarization roadmap, which has now been put in place in terms of the presentation, which was done by the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion. Cabinet noted that some retailers and manufacturers have been reportedly utilizing the unofficial exchange rate in their business operations. And in order to promote the uptake of plastic money, the government of Zimbabwe will strengthen the mandatory licensing requirements for all business operators to have a bank account, a POS machine under the Shop and the Shop Licensing Act, and deploy inspectors to curb misdemeanors that militate against price stability and availability of basic commodities.
Let's not pretend like we didn't see this day coming. We all knew this day was coming. It was simply a matter of time. The black market has taken over and the ZiG is falling quicker than the loose panty at Private Lounge. For those of you who've never heard of Private Lounge or frequented this highly decorated establishment, God bless you. You're doing God's work. You truly are. Here's my 2 cents. It's either you dollarize or you get rid of the dollar entirely. You can't have both, and it's about time that we made the decision. It's like two guys smashing one chick and calling it a threesome. It's actually not. It's actually called a train. That's what it is. It's a train. And that's the situation that we find ourselves being in as Zimbabweans. And the ugly part is that we happen to be that chick that's stuck in the middle between the ZiG and the US dollar, and they're running a train on us. That's what's happening. It's not nice to visualize, but that's just the truth. And right now we are getting pummeled. Like, we are actually getting pummeled. I mean, they are giving it to us. I'm talking about short strokes, those little quick ones. Long strokes, the deep ones, making love, that deep stroke. And it's not looking good, bruv. It's not looking good. It's not looking good for us. I think the best way to really put it together is that the ZiG and the US dollar are actually giving us a cream pie. And if you don't know what a cream pie is, look it up. Yeah, do it while you're still at work. Just Google cream pie and then let them see your search history. And then you'll know what a cream pie is. But I can tell you, it's just not looking good for us. Breaking news, and this has just landed on my desk. It's actually pretty hot. But we've just found out that Daisy Mtukudzi has raked Chivayo's top of the range gift. So as the story goes, late musician Oliver Mtukudzi's widow, Daisy, has raked the 2024 Toyota Fortuner gifted to her by the controversial businessman Wicknell Chivayo just a week ago. Daisy was given the car as a gift after suffering a week of online attacks following an expose by Mtukudzi's daughters Salmo and Sandra on how she mistreated them as children. Fortunately, no one was injured, but it looks like the vehicle is going to need some extensive repairs. because of the damage. Maybe this was a divine message from the late great Dr. Mtukudzi, and he was literally saying to his widow that maybe it's time for you to break off a little something to those grown-ass kids. I'm talking money-wise, just give them a little something, so that they don't go on different podcasts, airing out your public or intimate details about your marriage and your family life. Just give them a little something, because clearly they need some paper. So something to think about, Daisy. You're doing too much. Coincidentally, this isn't the first vehicle that's been gifted by Wicknell Chivayo that's been involved in a serious accident. Controversial self-styled cleric Talent Madungwe recently crashed his Toyota Aqua gifted by the ex-entrepreneur Wicknell Chivayo. Madungwe was driving the vehicle without a valid license. The accident occurred as a 38-year-old who claims to make regular visits to heaven and back, and experiencing several encounters with God, left the yard of his rented accommodation in Harare's Hatfield suburb.
Yeah, Prophet Madungwe was in a prayer. The heavens were opened. When the heavens were opened, one angelic appeared to a prophet. Suddenly, Prophet Madungwe swiped with the guardian angel. Then the guardian angel was on earth. Then Prophet Madungwe was in heaven. It took almost some hours discussing the major issues, like the issue of Zimbabwe. We discussed about it. Tikatimari, this year the rains were not adequate for us. God said, I know, but God promised that next year everything shall be well for our nation in terms of the rains. So next year God shall be with us. But God himself, then we talked about the US elections, about then God said the season going through America.
I would have expected, if you're visiting God quite frequently in heaven, you would have asked him to maybe hook you up with the crib in Borrowdale. Hatfield, come on, man. If you've been to heaven, I wouldn't expect you to come back down to Hatfield, with all due respect. I'm just saying. Again, I hate to be the one to say this, but maybe this was a sign from God, and God was sort of saying, whoa, slow down, buddy. You're doing too much.
I realized that this is an accident.
Emoti, example, tuabamu, accident, warning. First warning, slow down. Be careful. Take it easy, buddy. Maybe this was God saying that.
I realized that this is an accident.
He doesn't strike me like the kind of individual who has been on a plane. There's levels. Before you go to heaven, I think you should get on Ethiopian Airlines first, or even Airlink, and fly to Jersey first. Get on a plane, and then you can progress. I don't think you can jump straight from Earth straight to. He doing too much. Tuabamu. So for this next story, let me take you to Bulawayo, where a $4 million heist occurred at EcoBank. Take a look at this. Quite disturbing footage. Take a look.
Police have since confirmed that the robbers got away with $4 million United States dollars. The six masked suspects got away in a white Ford Ranger that was pictured by onlookers loading the loot at the corner of 9th Avenue and 5th Street.
Now, $4 million, that is a lot of money. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this was probably an inside job. For those of you who are quite familiar with Bulawayo, you know that EcoBank is literally about 400 meters away from Central Police Station. And these guys committed this crime in broad daylight. It was filmed by pedestrians who were walking about, going about their business, as these four men casually robbed these armed guards, took a trunk full of cash and put it onto the back of a bakkie. And the four of them casually just jumped onto the back and just drove off into the sunset. Sounds a bit convenient to me. I don't know. Now, the way I see it is Zimbabwe and Bulawayo in particular, there's a lot of roadblocks. So you would have expected maybe these guys to bump into one of these roadblocks as they're trying to get away with the cash. But conveniently on that day, there were no roadblocks. So, it's a bit sketchy at the very least. I thought the whole idea behind these roadblocks was to curb criminality in Zim. But on the day when you need them, they're not there. So all I'm going to say is, guys, great job. Fantastic job. So in the final bit of breaking news, and I have to say this is some of the most disturbing news that I have received so far today. The word is out. Zimbabwean men have been declared to be one of the stingiest men in the world. This is according to a couple of YouTubers, and this is what they had to say. Take a look.
One and only interaction I had with a Zim guy. Basically, my friend who was Zimbabwean, we're in her car that he was driving, right? And she had a nice Mercedes. So I remember we wanted to all go out and we wanted to get a bottle. Imagine I'm in the back seat, they're in the front, and she was like, "Oh, babe, I want to get a bottle of Bacardi." He said, "Oh, go and get it." And then she's looking at him like, "Oh, babe, can you get us the Bacardi?" He said, Bacardi's not in my expenditure.
Sounds about Zim.
Then we now had to split the bottle. He now carried the bottle. Imagine, we bought the bottle. We went out. This is my Bacardi bottle. He now did this. He now squeezed the bottle under his arm. And I was looking at the bottle, looking at him, looking at the bottle, I said, "Are you flexing with the bottle that we paid for?" From then, I said, "Me can't do that." I said, "I don't want it."
Listen, Zim men are just a little bit stingy.
On behalf of all Zimbabwean men, I'd like to take this opportunity to speak on this very important subject matter. When it comes to bottle popping, I want you guys who are watching this, my counterparts from all over Africa who say Zimbabwean men are very stingy, I want you guys to understand this. Zimbabwean men are very calculated. Before we engage in bottle popping, we take into consideration a few factors. Number 1, the risk. Number 2, the value. Number 3, the reward. We take all of these factors into consideration before we decide on bottle popping. Would you bait a fish that is already on your plate? I mean, the fish is already on your plate. It's there. You can eat it now. It's already on your plate. So why would you buy bait for a fish which is already on your plate? Why would you do that? Think about it. Make it make sense. Number 2, would you marinate meat that you are not going to eat? Make that make sense for a second. Make it make sense. Why would you marinate meat you are not going to eat? Why would you do that? Can somebody in the comments make this make sense? Please. Imagine waking up in the morning, getting your meat from the fridge. You marinate it, you get those spices, you put the spices, the peri-peri, the barbecue sauce, some chili. Then you go and chop some chilies and some herbs and you sprinkle the herbs all over the meat and you stick it in the fridge. You wrap it up in foil and you let it rest and then you pull it out and then you don't eat it. Help me make sense of that. Why would you marinate meat you are not going to eat? Just doesn't make any sense at all. So what's the logic in bottle popping for your girlfriend when she's already there? The nyash is already on the plate. So it doesn't make sense for you to invest more money for the nyash that is already on the plate. What makes sense and the right thing to do is to use your resources and conduct bottle popping to acquire a new nyash. Think about it. Think about it. Why would you invest into nyash that's already on your plate when you can use those resources to acquire new nyash?